Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of County Executive Mark Elrich's weekly media briefing. I'm Mary Anderson with the Montgomery County Public Information Office. Joining the County Executive today to talk about recent economic development news are Judy Costello, Director of Economic Development Special Projects, and Ken Hartman, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. Also joining us this week are HHS Director Dr. James Bridgers, County Health Officer Dr. Keisha Davis, and HHS Chief of Services to End and Prevent Homelessness, Christine Hong. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. County Executive.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today, and we have some really good economic development news to share. I want to welcome Samsung Biologics to Montgomery County. The company is buying GSK's Rockville campus. This is the South Korean drug maker's first manufacturing facility in the United States. The acquisition is expected to be finalized sometime next year, underscoring our county's position as a global hub for life sciences and biotechnology. This is a big win for our local workforce. More than 500 skilled employees will remain on that campus and will continue to call Montgomery County home. This is Samsung Biologics' first U.S.-based manufacturing site. The company says it plans to expand its manufacturing capacity within the United States and reduce supply chain risks as it grows. As I mentioned earlier, Montgomery County is home to one of the strongest biotech clusters, and Samsung Biologics' investment and AstraZeneca's recent multi-million-dollar investment commitments to cell therapy and clinical manufacturing facilities here in the county demonstrate our leadership in innovation and biomanufacturing. And when we travel overseas, we've been focused on helping the global marketplace learn about our industry cluster, innovation resources, and highly educated workforce and diverse community, so they can feel confident that Montgomery County is a place where their companies can grow and thrive and where their employees will feel welcome. With GSK's longstanding presence in Montgomery County, we're happy to know that the important work of their employees will continue with Samsung Biologics as their manufacturing partner for Benlysta and essential products for patients. The news serves as a reminder that our work outside of Montgomery County is a critical factor in what happens within our borders. I'd like to welcome some of my business team leaders right now to talk to you about how we're working to grow our economy. Ken Hartman is an Assistant Chief Operating Officer focusing on business. Many of you remember that Judy Costello is our Director of Economic Development Special Projects, who joins me on my economic missions, and Tom Lewis is joining us today because his focus for the last few years has been on helping the University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing get started and grow. He is also instrumental in the Viva White Oak project and the North Bethesda Metro redevelopment project. He'll be leaving our office in the new year to take a state leadership role within the House Speaker's office. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive.
Go ahead, Ken.
I really appreciate being here and with my colleague Judy Costello. Tom Lewis, I believe, is traveling today, but I'm happy to talk about what he's working on for us, for our team. As you know, economic development is multifaceted, and over the last year, I've been very proud to be part of your team focused on multiple efforts to advance economic development and activity and growth. Over the past year, as you know, we've advanced strategies that unlock transformative development. The tax increment financing proposal for Viva White Oak to move that transformative development on 280 acres with over 5,000 housing units and now 9,000 jobs, creating what is a site that has contamination on it into pad-ready development, ready to move Montgomery County into the next several years of growth. Tom Lewis has been instrumental in working with the developer and the council and other partners to move that development forward. We have a public hearing coming up in January, and we look forward to council approval. We've also been working with WMATA and Hines, the chosen developer for the North Bethesda Metro development. This development is going to be the anchor and economic attractor for the North Bethesda White Flint area. As folks on the call may know, the University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing is the anchor and attractor for this development. And Tom Lewis has led the charge in working with our team and with the University of Maryland team and with state officials to get the commitments to be able to advance that development. Over the last year, we've been able to do other things, including help many of our federal employees who have unfortunately lost employment by launching the Federal Workers Center with WorkSource Montgomery. This is, as far as we know, the first of its kind in the nation. We were able to work with the council to find the funding and work with WorkSource Montgomery to make this a reality. They're currently operating out of their Wheaton Center and have been assisting those who've lost their jobs find other employment in the county, and also working with county businesses who are looking to hire that talent into their workforces. We've also continued to work with our very talented business liaisons in our county business center and small business support services. We have a number of contractors and staff working to support small businesses and entrepreneurs, both in our 4 county incubators and those outside of the incubators who are looking to start a business, grow a business, or are looking for things like coaching and advice and troubleshooting as they do business in Montgomery County. I'm going to pause and let Judy Costello in, because I know she'd like to talk about some of our economic development wins and some of the things we're working on currently to advance our innovation ecosystem.
Sure. Thank you, Ken and Mr. County Executive. Well, we've talked about the Samsung Biologics win, and I think that caps, as the county executive said, along with AstraZeneca, the recent announcement we made on a media briefing here with the investment in clinical manufacturing in Gaithersburg, which follows on their cell therapy investment in Rockville. But biotech is not all that we do, and we're proud of the last year's wins and big firms like X Energy and AV Air Environment, energy to space communications. A lot of this has been credited when we ask the companies why they are moving and growing here. It's because of the strength of our workforce in terms of diversity and the high education. The county executive, as you know, has made a number of trade missions, and the fact that Samsung Biologics is here is in large part because they had a partnership with GSK, and we're working with them to manufacture their drugs. But they could have made the decision to locate that manufacturing anywhere, and we are proud that they chose Montgomery County, which has a large Korean American community, large Korean diaspora, and the county executive has purposely, on minimal cost, visited Korea and other Asian countries during the past 3 years. He made 2 trips with county council members accompanying him, again, very minimal cost. Mr. Madaleno was over there, and you may recall that in the last year, we're proud to have opened a new Daejeon Global Business Center right here in our incubator. And as of this week, we've committed to supporting 10 Korean companies, deep tech companies, who will come over during 2026, in the new year, to see if there is business opportunity and growth for them in the United States based in Montgomery County. So the gist of that is that it takes relationship building and intention in terms of supporting education and diversity. The county has also made some commitments that are bearing fruit over this year. The county executive and county council supported the BioHub, which is a biomanufacturing training facility that complements the work and training that's done at Montgomery College and USG, that we know GSK employees have been using, and we expect that Samsung Biologics will send some of their employees and new hires there. We also signed a commitment a little over a year ago with Henry Jackson Foundation's The Military's Research Institute, located near Montgomery Mall. They've been working for the past year on building new lab and office space over there that will complement our own innovation centers. They're currently accepting applications for businesses to enter that innovation space. And again, the county is purposely partnered with them to help fill a void for our entrepreneurs and raise our profile on the innovation stage. That lab space, by the way, is purposely named HJF Innovation at Montgomery County. The BioHub training space is purposely named BioHub Education and Training Center at Montgomery County. And as the county executive says, when we travel overseas or elsewhere, including the Bio Conference in California or Boston, part of what we're doing is educating other communities and other business leaders that we are, in fact, the center of the #3 biohealth cluster and other advanced tech. So that's kind of exciting. We also are excited that we just dispersed the first half of $7 million in technology innovation and founders grants. I think the county executive spoke about that last week. The purpose of these grants is specifically to fuel commercialization projects for companies to help them get closer to market. So the companies had to have proprietary technology, and we were oversubscribed for this fund. We've already received feedback that with half of the funds, people have been employed, new jobs have occurred, and people are progressing their proprietary technology. I expect in 2026, our economic development partners at MCEDC and our office will be sharing more details on the impact of these investments and the testimonials from the CEOs. And then finally, something that's been taking a lot of our time is an RFP that's been on the street to take our wet lab incubator in Germantown, the other two that have existed for historically in Silver Spring and Rockville, and a new AI innovation center, and add programming and facility resources to them to bring them up to the next level. So we've been keeping busy with a lot of purposeful intent on education, fostering innovation, and proudly claiming our diversity. And that hopefully adds a little bit of context to some of what you heard from Mr. Hartman and the county executive.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Judy.
Judy.
And if I can add, Mary, I looking forward to the new year. We are very excited as the county executive welcome Jared Smith on the past program. We're looking forward to working with him and the team at Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation on the county's strategic plan for economic development. As you see, there are a lot of pieces involved, from workforce to innovation to attraction and retention. And that report and with Mr. Smith's partnership will help us pull it all together and take the county into the future.
Thanks. Any other comments to add, Mr. County Executive, before we open to questions from the media? Members of the media, if you have a question, if you would raise your hand, and I will call on you. It looks like Kate Ryan has a question. Kate, go ahead.
Hi, thanks a lot. Obviously, retaining jobs, which is what happened at the Samsung site, is a plus. But what about addition of new jobs on these? I heard the phrase, or the number rather, 9,000 new jobs, or 9,000 jobs at White Oak. Is that new jobs? How many of these projects, and maybe Ms. Costello can speak to this, or Ken can, in terms of additional or new jobs that Montgomery County is getting?
So White Oak would be new jobs. This is a new development on 280 acres that today are basically the remnants of old sand and gravel pits. And when this is all fixed up and they put in the roads and start building the buildings, these are the jobs that should come along with the development there, the kind of businesses that they're planning on bringing over there. So it's going to be a major job center on the East County. We know that, Samsung is, maintaining the workforce, but they also want to grow their manufacturing here. And we would anticipate as they grow their manufacturing that, we would benefit from that as well. So some is retention and some is addition.
Gotcha. And the nature of the jobs, the 9,000 jobs, what fields, what industries?
We don't know everything that Mr. Bramble's planned over there. We know there's some major retailers that he's looking to bring in, but I know they're looking for other things. And when the thing is built, the thing is the White Oak area, the property they have in Viva White Oak, is zoned for pretty substantial development. And So this is up to him what he brings, but that's the plan there, is to make this both a housing center and a job center.
Got it. Ms. Costello, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, no, so I will, I can email the PIO team the exact numbers, because that development that Mr. Elrich is talking about is exciting. I referenced X Energy, AstraZeneca, AeroVironment. Those each have 100+ or more jobs now. I was on the X Energy site probably 2 weeks ago and literally eyeballed it. A lot of engineers. The AeroVironment is also engineers, but with satellite background. That's up in Germantown. X Energy is Bethesda. The AstraZeneca new jobs are pretty near term, and they will be in clinical manufacturing, biotech. And we are, well, that's all I'll say. There's a potential exciting opportunity that may come our way that would be software engineering. So again, a lot of the newer jobs are not necessarily all in biotech, which I think is good as we work to diversify the economy, not only from federal, but ensure that other industries are attracted here and that we have an attractive environment for them. But I will refresh. They all did announcements with commitments, those 3 companies. I just don't have them point of hand, and I'll send you those PIO, those releases to forward to you today.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
And Judy and Kate, the vision for Viva Bio includes not only retail jobs, but biohealth and possibly advanced manufacturing. There's a lot of ground to cover between now and then, but that's the current vision, is to really advance that site and use its natural connections, close to 95, close to FDA, close to Adventist, to bring in high-paying and also community-serving jobs.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the economic development front? All right. Thanks very much, Ken and Judy, for joining us. If you need to leave, you're welcome to jump off, or you're welcome to stay for the rest. Mr. County Executive, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, back to other news. Also good news, this happened this week. Dark Cars announced, and I want to thank John and Jamie Darvish, along with the entire Dark Cars Automotive Group, for the gift they presented to our community on Monday, which is going to help wipe out lunch debt for over 80,000 MCPS students. That donation of $230,000 demonstrates genuine compassion and generosity and will help make a direct and meaningful difference in the lives of students and families across the county. Before I was county executive, I was a teacher. I actually had a child in my class on a Monday morning who was crying and couldn't stop. And it was only after our counselor intervened that I learned he was crying because he was hungry. He hadn't eaten since Friday's school lunch. Weekends can be very difficult for some kids. They go a long time, sometimes without a hot meal. And when you see this, it stays with you. It taught me something important early on. Poverty is destabilizing, and it's a force that affects a child's health, their growth, and their ability to learn. And if we're serious about closing the opportunity gap and helping kids succeed, we have to address the real life impacts that poverty has and that shows up in classrooms every single day. That's why, I'm honoring the work that the Dark Cars has done, because this is really a unique moment. They are stepping up and helping pay off this debt. We know that, we continue to live with the consequences of our past policies and practices. They were created a long time ago. And even though those policies may be gone, their impacts are not. And that's why I've spent years of my life fighting for things like higher minimum wage and stabilizing rents in order to create more stable living conditions for people. Last week, I signed a bill giving families facing eviction more time, extending notice requirements from 6 days to 14 days. That may sound small to people, but for a family on the brink, a little extra time can mean the difference between staying housed and losing their home, and often not only losing their home, but losing their belongings as they're piled up outside on the curb. And if the family is not able to scoop them up or get a truck or vehicle to move them, sometimes they're gone by the time the families come back. This donation works in a similar way. It could help a family pay a bill. It can ease the stress around finances, and it can reduce tension that so often spills over onto kids. As we head into New Year's, this support gives families a fresh start. In Montgomery County, we don't turn our back on children or punish them for circumstances beyond their control. Once again, thank you to Dark Cars, MCPS, and the Chambers of Commerce in Rockville, Silver Spring, and elsewhere that help facilitate events like yesterday's check presentation. MCFRS events also happened this week. The Melanie Diaz family made a donation to the county. Potentially life-saving changes are now at work helping to protect renters who live in high-rise buildings. The tenant protection and notification law helped improve fire safety awareness by requiring landlords to discuss fire safety information at the time a lease is signed. Tenants learn about the building's emergency plan, sprinkler status, insurance information, and maintenance details, and families learn how to contact the building representative in the event of emergency. I signed the bill into law this past summer, but as we marked its first day, we also celebrated the arrival of new equipment that will help our local firefighters. On Saturday, the family of Melanie Diaz donated new smoke hoods to the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service. The hoods provide respiratory protection for firefighters in smoke-filled environments, give them more time to rescue people inside of buildings without harming or risking their respiratory systems. They're being added to all of our fire response trucks. You remember that Melanie was only 25 when she died in the high-rise fire in Silver Spring in 2023. Smoke alarms did not go off on her floor, and the building was not required to have adequate sprinklers in the stairwells and hallways. Her death inspired new laws on the local and state level to better protect tenants and ensure new automatic sprinkler regulations for high-rises were in place by 2033. Melanie's parents shared their grief and testified in Annapolis as they pushed for these changes on their daughter's behalf. Their generosity continues with this donation. I'd like to thank them. These protections will carry her name forward and hopefully prevent families from losing a loved one. I've also used my messaging over the last few weeks to inform you about the federal government's efforts to undermine the help and services we provide to end and prevent homelessness. Today, there's an update on that situation. The lawsuit brought against the federal government by more than 20 state attorneys generals, including Maryland, resulted in a judgment that would protect funding for those services for the following year. However, late last week, the federal government once again changed its ask of communities, further complicating the situation and once again forcing the courts to decide if what they're doing is within the scope of the law. All of this is frustrating because, as I've outlined before, it takes a system that is working to keep people off the street, and this upends it. If the federal government does what they're trying to do in Montgomery County, it would put 500 families, about 800 people, on the street very quickly. There's a lack of compassion in the way the federal government regulators are trying to victimize those in need of assistance. For now, the fight continues. We're in a position that we would typically expect financial help from the federal government at the start of the year. That will be delayed now because in the best case scenario, due to this court battle, it could take a while before we see this money. Meanwhile, while people are enjoying their holiday, federal regulators and the Department of Health and Human Services are trying to quietly change how we discuss vaccines and their safety. Last Friday, HHS scheduled a press conference and suggested that the U.S. would move to a vaccine schedule similar to Denmark. This would have been a major overhaul to vaccines and could have been disastrous. And while that press conference was canceled and the vaccine schedule remains in place, it's concerning that after years of careful evidence-based vaccine policy, all of that could be tossed aside through an opaque process that ignores how different the U.S. is from Denmark and the real consequences for children and families. The Federal Advisory Panel on Childhood Vaccines has scheduled a December 29th virtual meeting with virtually no public notice and still no published agenda, even though its decisions can affect vaccine policy nationwide. The public, states, and local health departments are being kept in the dark about what will be discussed and decided. Holding a meeting that affects the health and safety of vaccines between holidays without meaningful disclosure and without accountability undermines the public trust. I guess maybe it's questionable about how much more you could possibly undermine public trust. but it continues to undermine it, and it raises serious concerns about whether decisions are being made deliberately out of public view. This is not how evidence-based public health policy should be conducted. And I'm going to stop now, but I imagine my health team might want to weigh in on these developments as well. So let's start this week's updates with them before taking your questions.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, and thank you for highlighting the changes that have been proposed around the vaccine schedule. I'll just say that, the concern is not so much about the substance. Well, there is concern about the substance, but also about the process. The U.S. vaccine schedule works. It's based on science and evidence, and not comparison with other countries with very different healthcare systems. And any discussion about changes should happen in the open with evidence, and time to review that evidence, and the voices of public health professionals at the table. And so we are keeping an eye on this. It is expected that changes to the vaccine schedule might be proposed again in January. And so I know the state and county and other officials are keeping a close eye on what those suggestions might be. On other health fronts, at the end of the year, we are starting to see a little bit of a tick up in flu. COVID barely, flu and RSV just slightly, but flu is the one that we are seeing kind of out and about in the community. And so we remind people to do the things to prevent the spread. Wash your hands, cover your cough, cover your sneeze. And if you're sick, stay home. That's the best thing that you can do to help prevent the spread to somebody else. You might want to consider wearing a mask if you're going to be in a public place, on an airplane, or with a lot of people to help protect yourself and to protect others. The mask on the person who is sick helps to prevent the spread, and that's the thing that we know that is most helpful. Also, as we're going into the holiday season, we know it's a lot of time for joy and maybe overeating. So go slowly, take precaution when you're eating. We don't want to send anybody's high blood pressure or diabetes off the charts. Try and get in a little bit of exercise, maybe a walk each day if you've got a little bit of extra time. And we also recognize that this time, while it can be joyous for many, can also be difficult for some. And if you are experiencing mental health issues or things become overwhelming, we want to remind folks of the resource of 988, the crisis helpline. Also, within the county, we do have the crisis services. All of those services are available 24/7. So if you need to reach out, we encourage you to do so. So thank you. I will turn it over to Dr. Bridgers.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Thank you for that very succinct and cogent update. I don't have anything else to add except season's greetings to all. The Department of Health and Human Services will continue to fight for those who are disadvantaged, underserved, and who have limited access. We have a great team, and I look forward to what 2026 brings us, and we have a lot of work to continue to do. I'll turn it over to Dr. Stoddard.
I have no additional comments. Just want to echo what Dr. Bridgers said, and appreciation for my colleagues and appreciation for members of the media who continue to cover us on a weekly basis and provide critical information to the public. So I'll stop there.
Christine Hong from Services to End and Prevent, Homelessness. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that I appreciate the county executive's summary of the different actions that the court and HUD has taken, and we are awaiting the final written ruling from the court, the district court in Rhode Island, regarding the critical HUD funding we received to ensure 800 people in our county stay housed. So appreciate all the support coming from community members for our unhoused population, and just want to thank our partners for all the work that they do, ensuring that people have access to shelter and to our services and housing. So many thanks to all of them as well.
Thank you. Members of the media, any questions for our public health team? You both raised your hands about the same time, but I'm going to call on Ms. Jacoby from Bethesda today. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. Yeah. My question has to do with an Office of Inspector General report that came out this morning having to do with the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. The report's main finding, I guess, was that the association is not eligible to receive some emergency medical services transport reimbursement funds that they have been receiving since 2014. I'm just kind of wondering if the county executive has any kind of reactions to that report, whether, you know, the distinction being made there between the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Association and the local fire and rescue departments that they represent is really a meaningful difference or just sort of a technicality.
I guess I kind of view it as a technicality, but it's technically real. So we'll probably come up with legislation to obviate the problem. Either that, or we'll just have to give the money directly to the volunteer companies, all of it. But I think it's consistent with the spirit of what we were trying to do. It may technically not be correct, but it's been going on before I got there. So we were surprised like everybody else was.
Thank you.
Sorry, Kate, I was muted. You want to go ahead again, Kate Ryan from WTOP?
Thank you very much. I have a follow-up on that, but I'll circle back to it because I want to get the health people first. For you guys, it's been a year of change on the health front with changes at the federal level affecting what goes on locally. I'm wondering if one of you, perhaps Dr. Bridgers or Dr. Davis, could kind of reflect back and what kind of tactics, strategies, and changes do you see for the year ahead?
So I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Davis. Thank you, Kate, for that question. So we use some of the experiences and strategies the last time the president was in office. We knew that there were changes that would adversely impact the health community, but also those wraparound human services that we provide in the county. And using some of that baseline information, we knew that there may be change, but we didn't know the magnitude or level of change in the community, which is very complex, is enigmatic. It has changed almost every week, if you will, reflecting on the SNAP benefits and food insecurities and looking at all of those changes during the government shutdown. But we have great partners in the community, and we rallied together to provide even a tighter safety net, and working with Dr. Davis and Dr. Mensah at the Department of Health and Human Services. He is our human service officer, and Dr. Davis, as our county health officer, really worked to craft and monitor some of those policies so that we can inform the community of those changes. And some of them happen in the moment. Some of them we were able to strategically plan for. And we anticipate that those changes will continue in the new year, and how we adjust and how we look at those services that we provide. And we recognize that there may be some challenges. We may not be able to support all of the needs of the community. So we've been keeping the county executive apprised of those changes daily and or weekly during our weekly update. We know that there are changes that are coming and the challenges that lie ahead, but we're ready to change and make the necessary updates to our policies as needed. I'll stop there, and I'm sure Dr. Davis will add some to that. So Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Dr. Bridgers. And I think one thing I'll highlight is that we have great experience from folks like Dr. Bridgers, who were here during the first Trump administration. And so some of the lessons learned that he mentioned around, how to work with this administration. I think the other thing that we as a county are doing are really solidifying our partnerships and trying to build up our community safety net. So when we think about, for example, our Montgomery Cares and Care for Kids programs and the safety net clinics that serve those clients, working closely with them to make sure that folks who may not trust to come to the county government for services know that they have a trusted partner in the county, working closely with our hospitals, as well as with our state partners on things like vaccines and changes to Medicaid and changes to SNAP. And it has really forced us to make sure that those connections are strong and tight, and that we are able to serve the community in a way that moves forward with trust and collaboration. And so I think it has forced us to work together with our partners, similar to the way that COVID did, and we continue to build on those partnerships.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Can I come back to Mr. Elrich now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
On the report from the IG, and again,
yeah.
this had been going on for quite some time. I read the report. It does seem very technical, but how is it that this went on for so long?
Because I don't think anybody
But
thought there was anything abnormal about it. Once it started and you do this year after year, you don't go back and re-examine and say, I guess nobody went back and thought, well, why are we doing this? Because it was a normal part of what we were doing. So it,
Got- and
nobody
we-
came to me and said, have you thought, is this a problem? Should we do something about it?
Got it. So are you saying that the county will take care of what if that money had to be reimbursed from the volunteer entity, the association, that the county would foot that bill? How would that work?
We're still trying to figure out how to deal with that. I mean, I don't feel like we need to be reimbursed for this. The money went where we had intended it to go. It just didn't go there the right way. So we'll have to figure out what it is we're required to do.
Got it.
We'll figure it out. We have a choice that we have to figure it out.
Got it. Different subject entirely. The school.
Can I give you a little more on that? Because I think it's important.
Sure.
MCVFRA is a critical partner in delivering fire rescue services in Montgomery County. So the association is an important component of that. Obviously, when we, for example, reach agreements, not contracts, but similar MOUs with the volunteers to operate the services in Montgomery County, we do so through conversation and work with the association. So they are a critical partner in our ability to deliver fire rescue services through the volunteers. And so we have a vested interest as a county in their success, and we see them as a critical partner. That is not to say, obviously, if there are issues of fiscal management, that those don't need to be addressed in a meaningful way to make sure that the taxpayers and those who are funding the MST funding aren't receiving the services that they are expecting. But obviously, we need to work through those issues. But at the end of this process, be left with a volunteer fire rescue association that is a capable partner for the county to continue to deliver the services that our residents rely on.
Got it. And they serve 19 different volunteer fire houses, correct?
Yeah, they're essentially almost individual corporations that are represented by a single association who we are then able to work with to get uniform agreement across the board rather than having to negotiate separately. And I'm not even sure it's legal for us to negotiate separately with 19 different fire corporations, for lack of a better way to describe them, that are volunteer. And, we wouldn't want to have disparate rules in different stations. And, there's value to the county in having a consistent volunteer fire service operation.
Got it. Okay. And forgive me, I'm going to circle back. School budget. The superintendent is asking for basically $3.8 billion, 5% over last year. But as he explained in his presentation, part of that is because those dollars don't go as far as they used to. What is your sense of, will you be able to fully fund that budget? I know everyone from the State House on down is saying this is going to be a tough year ahead. What are your thoughts, and will you fully fund that budget?
I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to fully fund the budget. The school system, it's a combination of capital and operating, but the operating needs are real. And the capital needs, the school system built up a long history of undone maintenance and repairs. And they didn't do it by themselves. I think everybody's got to realize that it was a combination of, a county not having the revenue and never putting forth numbers that would give them any hope of funding the level of capital projects that they needed, and complicated by the fact they never asked for what they needed. And so they managed to work us into a giant hole that's many, many years in the making. And it's going to take, as the superintendent, I think, pointed out, it's going to take a long time to undo. He's not trying to undo it in just the next 6 years. His ask for capital extends well beyond a decade in order to meet the neglected repairs that should have been done a long time ago.
Thank you.
Jolie, it looks like you have another question.
I do. Just a quick follow-up on the operating budget specifically. I'm wondering what you make, Mr. County Executive, of the fact that the operating budget is a 5% increase, or at least the proposed operating budget is a 5% increase over last year, given that the enrollment in MCPS is actually trending downward.
So just because enrollment trends down doesn't mean you create, you need fewer teachers. You know, if you took the, I put it, they down about 2,600 students and you spread that over 220 schools, whatever it is, you're talking about 10 kids a school. You're not going to see any real decrease in the number of staff you need based on those level of changes. And there's some schools that are actually probably seeing increases while those schools are seeing, you know, decreases. So you're not really at a point where you're triggering any significant savings in personnel just because of the downward enrollment. It might be different at the point that you're talking about 15 or 20,000 fewer students, but at this point, I don't think it's enough to expect much meaningful in the way of staff reduction. And one of the things he's pointed out, this is another example of how misinformation generously provided by the school system for years, which he's trying to undo. When the council did not fully fund the budget a couple of years ago, they were told by the school system, well, this will only increase class size by about 1 student. And it turned out it increased class size more than 1 student. And that's because the school system's way they used to tell us what the class size was, they would take all the staff in the building, there were teachers, and they divide that into the number of students. What you find out later is not everybody in the school was teaching. And some of the people they counted as teachers were in fact probably teachers, but they were not classroom teachers. And so they artificially deflated the size of the classrooms when everybody knew it wasn't true. I knew it wasn't true. I complained about it. I talked to the teachers union. We talked to teachers in classrooms. They said it wasn't true, but they persisted in the fairy tale and people bought the fairy tale. So what's the nice thing about Dr. Taylor right now is we're actually dealing with real numbers and some level of transparency that's not been school practices for a very, very long time. In fact, at no time can I remember when this place was transparent.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the county executive or any of our guests today? Going once, going twice. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope everybody has a chance to spend time with family and friends over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.